Okay, and welcome to more advanced techniques with Solver by popular demand. So before we get going, I thought I'd open up with a few assumptions. So before you get going, we assume by now you've seen that first video that we've got on Microsoft Solver. You have Solver installed, and you know the basics: setting up constraints, setting up integers, how to set up the objective cells, all the basics. We don't have time to describe that again. So if you haven't been through the first training video on Excel, I suggest you close this video down, open up my first video on Intro into Solver with Microsoft Excel. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. So here's what our problem is today, right? We're working on business problems in Microsoft Excel, specifically when using Solver. So you have found yourself in this scenario working in production for a pharmaceuticals company. That pharmaceutical company makes these items: insulin and aspirin and albuterol, fish oil, all these different things. Okay. Now, I don't really know what goes into actually making any of these things, but we know that it's the units of measure, we'll just call them units, right? So when it comes to consumables, right, economic consumables, supply demand, we have 16,000 units of raw materials and we have 45,000 minutes of labor available. Now, we've got some consumables over here in row 5, right? So it takes 6 minutes to make 1 unit of insulin, and it costs us 3.2 units of materials right here in order to make that insulin, right? 5 minutes to make aspirin, 2.6 units of materials consumed, 4 for albuterol, 1.5 materials, and so on and so forth. Now here comes the good stuff, right? We sell each one of those units at $12.50 a piece, and where it sells them at $12.50 a piece, it costs us in dollars $6.50. So obviously the difference would be our profit margin. The last thing we have to pay attention to in this particular data model is that we have some bare minimum that we have to produce items, right? Some bare minimum producibles. So we have to manufacture at least this minimum amount before we worry about maximizing our profit. Okay. So the next thing we need to pay attention to, right, is the big picture. What's our goal? Well, our goal is to maximize profit. So at the end, I've got this final cell here that is what our objective cell for Solver is going to be. So quick once over with Solver, just little basic things. If I were to go into this setup right now and trace the precedence, you'd see that I have a dependent cell that is dependent to get its values from these precedent cells. Okay, I have already built a model. Okay, let me turn those off. So if I show you this solver function, or if I show you this sum product, right, I've gone through and I've placed the actual functions in here that are helping Excel calculate what it needs to calculate. Now, why did I do that? And what's the challenge as a student that you would see? Well, here's the deal, and this is what we would have talked about in our earlier video. Solver, the feature, is actually really quite simple to use. It's really simple to push the buttons, right? If I jump into the data tab and I just open up Solver, there's really not that much going on in there. The challenge is understanding what it is you're trying to do. So there's really 3 questions that I normally tell people, which is, what is the question asking me? How do I get that answer? And once I get it, what does it mean to me? How can I use that for competitive advantage, right? So it's not just about how do I push the buttons. You don't need me to push the buttons. You can read a book on how to do that. You can watch another video on how to push the buttons, but really the value in this is understanding why and what you're doing. So here's what you know. Excel is not smart. Excel is not nearly as smart as you are. Excel is simply fast. It is a really great calculator. It's a tool that has to be used by a master skillsman or a master tradesman, and that is you. Okay, so before I can ever get into Solver and do anything, I have to build myself some kind of model, some kind of table, some kind of something. Now, if you opened up a blank file from the web, you'll see that this bottom part isn't there at all. Well, the reason that I did this at the bottom, these are actually 2 of the exact same thing. I could use this model, I could use this model, and at the end, I'm going to get to the exact same place, and I want to show you that. The reason that I have both this top build and this bottom build is because at the top, I kind of took some methods that require less work that you can visually see. I did a lot of sum products, okay? I subtracted the manufacturing cost versus the sales profit to get the net profit down here at the bottom. And at the bottom down here, I have spelled out each step along the way. But at the end, what you'll see is the bottom line here and the bottom line there will actually end up being exactly the same. Okay. Now, why did I do that? Well, for people that are starting out, Solver can be really, really confusing. The steps in Solver can be really, really confusing. So, by showing you, or when I work with students in class that are getting started, what I tell them is, when in doubt, spell it out. And at the bottom, I've got each one of the steps along the way, right? So there's the materials consumed per item, the profit per item. Instead of using sum product up top, that just takes the total sum product. So it calculates the total profit, and then it subtracts from that here the total amount that it cost you to make it to give you the net profit, right? So either one of these work exactly the same. And when I tell you, when I talk about building data models like this, I say, it's kind of the eye of the beholder, right? You could build the same thing 4 different ways and get to the same bottom line as long as the inputs and the outputs are exactly the same. So let's go ahead and jump in and make this thing happen. So I'm going to go to Solver, and I'm going to set my objective cell. My objective cell in this case is C14. Okay, because our goal is to maximize profit. The next thing I'm going to do is do my change cells, right? Now these are the things or the variables that Excel are going to run through in order to meet our goals. So the only thing that we can truly control here, everything else is out of our control, is the amount we actually produce. Right there. Okay. So I'm going to go in and start adding my economic constraints. So here's what I know. I know that the amount that I produce has to exceed or at least equal the minimum demand, which is here. We have to make that many. I also know that the total minutes consumed have to be less than or equal to the total labor minutes available. And I also know that the materials consumed have to be less than or equal to the raw materials that are available. And there's one last thing, and I thought I'd stop and talk to you about it. You know what you really can't do? You can't really sell or buy half an aspirin, right? So in this particular case, you know that Excel would try to make this come out perfectly by using decimal points, but we don't want that because you can't sell half an aspirin. So what am I going to do? I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to make sure that the variables are manipulated as integers. There you go. So I click OK again. So now that this is all said and done, I run through all my variables. They look pretty good. I'm going to click solve, and I get 61,704.40 if we meet all of our goals. So if I like this, I click OK. If I don't, I click cancel. I do like it, so I'm going to click OK here. Now here's the part that's neat. Here's what stopped us, right? So we were able to go through and run all of these, okay? And what stopped us was we ran out of time. We had 4,500 minutes available, and we used all 45 minutes of our time. Did we still have a little bit of raw materials left? We actually did, but we couldn't use them because we were out of time. Now what's neat is it gave us these numbers right here. So what can I do? I can grab these numbers just to show you that it works both ways. Jump down to the amount produced, paste them in. Oh, and guess what? Both models worked exactly the same way. Yeah? Kind of neat, right? I love it when a plan comes together just like the A-Team. All right, any questions, let me know. If you like this video, hey, give me a thumbs up. I'm really trying hard to make sure that you guys understand what's going on, and nobody loves Excel like I do. So I'll be back soon, maybe with some more Solver, maybe with some multivariable data tables. But until then, study up, and we will talk soon.